like storytelling, which is like there's a romance arc. They obviously get together in the end. Like, it's a little bit boring and pat, but like, I do think that this is like, it is at least trying something, and like the character isn't like, oh, you have to learn to believe in yourself. It's like, hey, you're too hard on yourself and others, and maybe you need to chill a little bit. And like, that's certainly a lesson I think the hosts of this podcast could internalize a little bit more as time goes on.
Anyway, moving on.
Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, a podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm a double yoker.
And this week, we fly the coop with the 2000 DreamWorks claymation film, Chicken Run. Before we discuss the only recommendable Mel Gibson film, remember you can help us on Mortified the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, signing up for our monthly newsletter through the link in our show notes, or following us on Twitter and Tumblr at MortifiedPod. Layla.
Aaron.
What's your history with Chicken Run?
So when I came to the United States of America in October of 2001, a month after the towers fell, I had two movies in my repertoire. All of my VHSs were still in Russia, so I had to start clean, a new beginning, the American dream. The two VHSs I owned were Chicken Run and the stop-motion Rudolph. And of those two, the only one that survived was Chicken Run because I recorded episodes of Inuyasha that I wasn't allowed to stay up late to watch over stop motion Rudolph, making it a very tonally confusing
That's incredible. That rules.
So I have Chicken Run basically memorized.
Yeah, no, that's a very good story, and that really speaks to the ingenuity of young Layla to be like, I know how I can trick my mom into letting me watch anime. It's by stealth recording the VCR. For you who don't remember this area of media, you could record shit over into tapes. If you knew how to do it, you could record big old plastic tapes to take anything that was on the television. And you could record over shit. So that's really funny that you destroyed Christmas to preserve anime.
I was a Christmas hater even then.
That's really good. Yeah, I guess I also owned this on VHS. And that's... I watched it a ton, probably around the same time that you did. But yeah, I have had fond memories of it. I viscerally remember the scene where the first chicken gets killed.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, wow, that, this movie I think largely holds up. I really had a good time watching it. I think because it was, so for kids and so much like... aimed to appeal for like everyone. I think it was like a pretty good movie. Yeah, I mean, except for the fact that Mel Gibson's in it, I think it was great.
Yeah, I think it holds the fuck up. And I also think it says a lot about me. So like my little brother, his movie that he played a lot on repeat was Cars. He had a Cars bed. He was a Cars kid. My two movies, so pre-emigration and then post-emigration, I had two different movies. Pre-emigration, the movie I played on repeat, another movie we've covered on this podcast, was The Secret of Nim. And post-emigration, it was Chicken Run. So I just feel like that says a lot about my psyche and the things I am now. That those were my two flicks, and still are. I think they both hold up.
Yeah, no, they're very good. This was actually the first like stop motion like claymation thing DreamWorks did. I'm looking through their movies, and like they had Ants was their first one in '98.
Ants was 3D. It's CGI.
Yeah, but it's not like claymation.
Wait, are you counting the things that are or are not claymation?
I'm just saying. I'm saying this is the first claymation one.
Oh yes,
yeah.
And it's also, but it's not a. So DreamWorks distributed this. This is not a DreamWorks movie. This is an Aardman movie.
That makes more sense to me. I was like, why did DreamWorks do this? Because I'm looking at the films they had before this: Ants, Prince of Egypt, El Dorado. And then Chicken Run, which is it's definitely out there, right? You're right. Yeah, DreamWorks Pictures did all these, but you're right. This is a Pathé Aardman Animations joint. And I don't know if they ever collaborated with them. Oh, I guess they did Wallace and Gromit afterwards. But yeah, it's just like, we talk about this all the time. It makes me a little bit nostalgic for the days in which media companies were willing to try shit.
Well, we just both saw that tweet by Craig McCracken in which he pitched 16 originals to Netflix and is forced back into the Powerpuff Girls corner, so...
Yep, and now, this November, Netflix will be putting out a sequel to Chicken Run, so it's like, damn, how the mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. Anyway, let's talk about this movie.
Yeah, I think, Gorsh, is it me on the summary, or is it you?
Oh, God. The last one that the audience has heard was Gundam. And I feel like you did Gundam. But how about I narrate Chicken Run and then you jump in because you have a sharper memory of it with any of the details that are fun and interesting.
Well, I also did just watch it on Friday, but sure, take it away.
Yeah. So this movie's set in 1950s, roughly, Yorkshire, England. And basically, there's a group of sentient chickens that, all right, the first thing I noticed...
choice wording you have here in the summary.
Okay, the first thing I noticed about this chicken farm is that it looks like a concentration camp. And, like, I think I think it's probably more closely, like, prison, but, like, they talk about World War II, like one of the chickens canonically served in the Royal Air Force. So, like, I don't know. I don't think it is truly like, this is a concentration camp. Like, I don't think that's what they're trying to go for, but they are trying to go for, like, this is a bad place for chickens to be. It's definitely a prison. It's definitely supposed to be some sort of prison. And that was the only thing that I was like, I don't know that I would have gone so exactly close to that. I would have maybe made it a little bit lighter, but sure. Anyway, it is a labor camp. It is explicitly a labor camp.
Yeah, this is like a deeply British, they don't pull a lot of punches.
Which, like, I mean, I don't know. I kind of have to respect that. Like, I personally wouldn't have made that direct comparison in a kid's movie. I think that's a little much, but I do kind of have to give them up for committing to the bit. And yeah, like that's kind of the whole situation. There's a group of chickens that are sentient. It's not like a situation where the humans and chickens speak a different language sort of deal, and like nobody can understand each other. Like the chickens are just fully people. In this one, they can use tools, which they do a lot. Anyway, they are imprisoned in this camp. They are forced to lay eggs for Mr. and Mrs. Tweedy, the farmers. And the main chicken is Ginger, right? She's our, nonsense, pretty standard, I would say, British protagonist who is like, I'm going to get the job done for Queen and Country or whatever it is they do over there. And basically she is constantly like, she's the brains of their operation trying to help them escape. And like we see, in the first shot of the movie and like the first 10 minutes, we see a bunch of different plans going through, She's like digging under to the tunnels. She's, trying to make various, what was one of the other ones? Like she like tries to disguise them under the chicken like feeder, like trough, which is very silly. But she has a bunch of weird plans, that are always getting fucked up because unfortunately the rest of her friends are a bunch of idiots. And they actually address this in the film. They talk about how like there's just like too many of them to like easily get out all at once. Ginger could probably escape if she wanted to, and she just doesn't because she wants to make sure everybody gets out. But they're never able to escape. The farmer, Mr. Tweedy, and his dogs are always there to catch them. And another like weirdly fucked up thing about this is that when he catches Ginger, he always imprisons her in a dumpster. Where she has like scratched the number of attempts or like days she's been in the dumpster. It's not specifically clear, but like she calls it solitary confinement. Like this man is like treating this like a prison, and he is trying to imprison the chickens like you would a human person, which is it's quite a choice, I will say.
Yeah, it's a lot. This opening sequence is pretty fucking incredible because you go from solitary confinement to, and you kind of brush over this in the notes, but I do think we should address, they take roll call of the chickens and they count how many eggs they all laid at the end of all these attempts. And Edwina, did not lay any eggs. She didn't tell anyone she didn't lay any eggs.
Right.
And so Edwina gets taken to the fucking chop. That's what they call it. Edwina gets her fucking head cut off. And it cuts from Ginger watching Edwina. Now, they don't show, like, the actual, like, blood or anything, but, like, the axe comes down. Or you see the shadow of the axe come down. You cut from the chop to Edwina being roasted and plucked on the Tweety's dinner table.
Yeah, like, you see her skeleton. Like, and I think another interesting bit about that is, like, Ginger, like, goes up to the top of one of the barracks to, like, watch her friend get executed, and, like, all the chickens, like, stop and they hear the sound of the axe hit the stump. Like, they all just kind of stop and acknowledge it, and there's a bit where Ginger, like, has a full breakdown and is just, like, crying because she did watch her friend die, and I think there's, like, something interesting and weird about, like, them making the choice that's, like, Ginger takes all of this very personally. Like, she watches the execution of her friends, like, even though she doesn't have to, she, like, wants to commit it to her memory in a way that, like, is a lot. It's reading into this a lot, but I think it's true. Like, I don't think you make that choice unless you really want to embed into your audience's mind that this is a person who is, like, willing to, you know, cares deeply about their colleagues and you know, wants to watch their final moments with dignity.
No, but that's what I love so much about this movie, because, like, it's such an atypical character arc and it's such an atypical story structure for a kids movie. And I genuinely, like, I just don't have faith that, like, Netflix is going to carry that legacy for the sequel. I think we're going to see a pretty classic 3-act, like, kids film out of Chicken Run 2. Am I still going to watch it? You fucking bet, because I love Chicken Run. But, like, the character arc of Ginger and Rocky, part of that is Ginger learning that being this, like, self-flagellating, hard truth, only reality kind of leader doesn't work. And the other half of that is Rocky learning that only telling people what they want to hear and never doing anything scary or difficult ever in his life is also not the way to go. And they meet in the middle, which is a very weird and nuanced and atypical character arc for two protagonists from children's movies to go through.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting exercise in storytelling. I think this still does, like, pretty standard children's film like storytelling, which is, like, there's a romance arc. They obviously get together in the end. Like, it's a little bit boring and pat, but, like, I do think that this is, like, it is at least trying something, and, like, the character isn't like, oh, you have to learn to believe in yourself. It's like, hey, you're too hard on yourself and others, and maybe you need to chill a little bit. And, like, you know, that's certainly a lesson I think the hosts of this podcast could internalize a little bit more as time goes on.
Anyway, moving on.
So yeah, basically, as she is, like, you know, mourning her friend, she basically, like, prays to heaven for a miracle. And then we hear an explosion, and then we hear a man flying above, and it's Rocky Roads. And he's, like, flying, you know, and she's, like, waving at her, and then he hits the weather vane and, like, gets flung into the camp and breaks his arm. And he's just like, shit, what happened? And she's like, whoa, you were flying, you got to teach us how to fly. And it's very funny. They make this choice, which is, like, this rooster, you know, Rocky Roads, he's American. Like, he's just straight up an American dude. And, like, that's very funny. There's a British, like, Air Force officer that keeps calling him a Yank, which is hysterical. But, like, you know, basically they come to this agreement, right? Like, Ginger's like, all right, you know, we're going to shelter you because you are clearly from the circus, right? The circus is coming to look for you. We'll hide you, but in exchange, you got to teach us how to fly, okay? And he's like, yeah, I could teach you how to fly. Definitely. Because, like, he has this poster and it's got a picture of him flying. You know, he's the amazing flying chicken or whatever. And that's kind of the main meat of the story. They have to learn how to fly. And Rocky begins to, like, be their consultant and kind of educate the chickens on how to fly and escape their prison. And how would you describe the reaction of the chickens to meeting Rocky?
These are the horniest chickens I've ever seen in my life. These chickens want to fuck Rocky Road so bad it makes them look stupid.
There's a bit where, like, he's like, all right, well, what bunk am I sleeping in? And every single one of them is like, oh, me, mine. You can share my bunk. It's so good.
So there's three, like, okay, so if we want to talk about the chickens, there's three, like, main kind of side character chickens. There's Babs. Babs is fat and she's always knitting. Those are her two character traits. She's very stupid. When Ginger goes to solitary confinement, she goes, oh, you're back from holiday. And Babs goes, and Ginger goes, Babs, I wasn't on holiday. I was in solitary confinement. And it's like that all the time. And then there's Bunty, who's kind of big and butch and kind of mean.
You know what? Butch is right. That is the butchest chicken I've ever seen in my life.
She's a butch little hen. And she has this weird kind of borderline sexual tension thing going on with Fowler that I'm very curious about.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there is a weird energy between those two. That I can't quite put my finger on.
And then there's Mac, who is deeply Scottish and my angel, and every line delivery made by Mac is the best line delivery in all of cinema. So those are the three chickens that aren't Ginger, and then there's Fowler, who's the rooster that was in the Royal Air Force. And he's kind of old, and he's kind of crotchety, and he's always talking about his old days flying in the crate.
I love Fowler because, like, the first thing I noticed is, like, why is this chicken really did serve in the Royal Air Force, huh? And, like, that's a plot point. That's, like, that's the end of the movie. It's just like, yeah, I'm going to use my experience fighting the Nazis to help us get out of here. And I was like, this is a wild movie.
It's so good, though. I love Fowler. He wears a little scarf and he wears a little medal, and I love him so much. And again, him and Bunty have, like, a weird thing going on. I can't tell what's happening there, but I love it. I think it's very funny.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, basically they do a bunch of, like, training exercises. Rocky is, like, making them do push-ups. He's making them do calisthenics. He's having them jump off of, like, the tops of roofs and shit. None of it's working. And this begins the argument that he has with Ginger, because Ginger's like, you're not actually helping us. You're clearly taking advantage of all my horny friends. Because, like, there's one bit where he's, like, kind of halfway giving them instructions, but then he's just, like, getting a massage. And he's like, oh, yeah, if you could just, like, go faster, like, turn in circles really fast. Oh, that would be great. And then, like, obviously all the chickens are doing that as their instructions. But then the joke is that he's giving instruction to somebody massaging him. And then Ginger's like, hey, what the fuck, dude? Come on, get out of the bubble bath.
Yeah, and the massage and the bubble bath, by the way, is a button-mashing minigame in the PS1 tie-in that I used to play all the time before I ever saw the movie. I had the PS1 tie-in in Moscow, and I played it multiple times before I ever saw the movie in the States.
That's interesting. I wonder how that informed your read of the film when you saw it the first time.
Well, I couldn't speak English, and the game was entirely in English. So it's interesting. It gets real piecemeal. You have a lot of figuring out to do.
Mm-hmm. You're like, man, this movie has a lot fewer bubble baths than I thought they were going to be.
That's what I say about most movies.
Yeah, it's a shame. But yeah, eventually, right, we see that the farmers are not thrilled, right? Mrs. Tweedy has a big chart that says egg production, and it's got a big red arrow that's going down. And she's like, I can't believe this. My fucking useless husband thinks that the chickens are organizing a union against me. And I am sick of being poor. You know what I'm going to do? I'm tired of... What is the line she says exactly about minuscule profits?
Oh, it's just... And I'm tired of making minuscule profits.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And she sees this advertisement for a machine, which she orders, and it's a pie-making machine, but, like, it's also a torture device, which is hysterical.
What kind of pies, Aaron?
It's apple, right?
No, it's chicken.
It's so good. Her husband's adult, and he asks that, and she has this, like, completely deadpan delivery. He's like, oh, yeah, apple's my favorite. So
Mr.
good.
Mr. Tweedy is a king. He's so dumb. Oh, my whole family was egg farmers. My father was an egg farmer. My grandfather was an egg farmer. His father was an egg farmer. Mrs. Tweedy is just ready to kill him.
And, like, he is the most gaslit man in the world because he's seen the chickens using tools. Like, they are fully, like, creating, like, digging with tunnels and spoons and, like, lighting lamps. And he's just like, his wife's just like, it's all in your head. And he's like, yeah, I guess this is all in my head. These chickens have fully built an airplane, and I guess I'm just making that up.
Well, before they build an airplane, he builds the fucking pie machine. And this is where I argue that this movie does not have a 3-act structure. It has a 5-act structure. And the first appearance of the pie machine is Act 3.
I think that's right. I don't know anything about act structures that are not 3-act because I'm a bad writer. But like, yeah, I think it is definitely like structured in a different way, and like it escalates. I really like how the pie machine escalates, and like this movie continues to build tension. Like it immediately sets, you have this in your notes, it immediately sets the stakes by killing Edwina and being like, this is the existential threat all these chickens are facing. Not only this is why, you know, Ginger tries so hard to get out, is that she's watched her friends get literally murdered and eaten, and then like they escalate that tension by being like, not only is the problem that your friends are going to be killed, you're all going to be killed en masse now by this, you know, technological nightmare, and like it continues to escalate this tension in a really interesting and like impressive way for a kids movie. Like I cannot believe the writers of this like cared enough to actually put some thought into the ways that this story continues to build and build.
Right. And the best part about it is, so they get the fucking pie machine running, and what does Mr. Tweety do, the vindictive son of a bitch? Because Mrs. Tweety's like, go get me a chicken. Just one chicken, just to test it out. Who does he go for?
It's like, I'm going to find that chicken I've been putting in solitary confinement for years, and I'm going to turn her into a pie. And he takes Ginger, and then everybody's like, well, hey, Rocky, you can fly now. Go do something. Go save her. And he's like, yeah, but that's just what they'd think I would do. Instead, I'm going to zip line over there for some reason. It's fine. He infiltrates the machine, and they have this like very fun, like, the thing it reminds me most of, actually, is the droid factory sequence in Star Wars Attack of the Clones, where they're just, like, dodging all these big, stupid machines that are coming down. Like, there's a machine that's just, like, a big, like, gravy squirter they have to, like, jam up to make sure that the pressure builds. But also, like, there's just, like, a big, you know, like, the oven is just, like, a big, like, circle of flames. They are constantly getting like mashed and crunched into these pies.
I have professional animation colleagues. This is me putting out a fucking carrion call to you all. Friends, lovers from animation, colleagues, coworkers. If you know where the gravy pressure gauge prop is from the movie Chicken Run (2000). If you have a contact at Aardman that can get me the gravy pressure gauge from that movie, it would make me the happiest man alive. I think that is the funniest prop to feature in multiple close-ups. The gravy pressure gauge is a plot point.
Yeah, no, like it fully like resolves the film at the end. Like it's really good. It's very funny that he just like gets a carrot and shoves it in there, and that sabotages the machine and buys them some time to train. Really funny. There's a bit in there. Well, like firstly, there, you know, him and Ginger are like, you know, getting put in these pies, but like surviving somehow. They get to the final bit where they're like stuck in a pie, and the first thing he says is like, oh man, it's like an oven in here. And then all the flames turn on. It's like, all right, yeah, that's pretty good. And like they're trying to escape. The door is closed. There's like a door that's very slowly closing. They have to like escape the oven room, and like, but Rocky, you know, gets knocked on the head or something, and he's dizzy, and he literally falls into every single pie, and there's like a Rocky-shaped outline into like 30 of the different pies. It's really stupid and funny, but like, there's so many bits in this that I'm like really, really impressed by. Like you know, this isn't to say that any other kind of animation is not impressive and takes hard work, but I really like the idea of like this claymation because it looks like it took so much time to do.
Yeah, oh my god. I'm always like stunned by the gravy too, because it looks so wet. But you have to be able to animate with it frame by frame. So I'm like, what is the gravy? What did you make it of?
I don't want to know the answer to that.
Yeah, no, I also love when Ginger gets dropped down a chute and Rocky says shoot. And that joke took me 20 years to get.
It's really good. It's a great joke. But yeah, so like they continue to redouble their efforts after Ginger gets saved. And there's this one bit where like Rocky's like, hey, you know, or like Ginger's like, hey, we need to like get this together, otherwise we're all gonna fucking die. And like all of the chickens are really bummed out by that because, you know, none of their attempts have been successful. And Rocky's like, hey, girl, you gotta be cool for a second. You have to like, it can't all be, doom and gloom around here. And to kind of illustrate that point, there's a pair of rats, Nick and Fetcher, that he promises them that they can have every egg that he lays, if he gives them all this like stuff. So they give him a radio, and like they have a little dance party in the coop, and like it's really cute, and like we see all the chickens dancing and having a fun good time. And
that song is such a fucking earworm that they played during that party. Every time I hear it, it gets stuck in my head for 3 days, and it's so thematically appropriate. I will probably edit in the chorus like underneath us talking here, but it is just that party scene is everything to me. And also, the rats are gay, Aaron.
The rats are fully like husbands. Like there's at one point where they're like, one of them asks the other to dance, and he's like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, they are fully married, and like it's very nice for them just to have these gay rats here.
They sit on little lawn chairs, and they do little color commentary on the chickens failed.
It's true. What are those? They're truly just Statler and Waldorf, like just heckling the chickens with bad puns the whole time.
They're like, sometimes the chickens will like flop or something, or they'll fall, and they just go, oh, that one's definitely scrambled, talking about like their future eggs or those chickens are my favorite part, or those rats are my favorite part of this movie. They're absolutely incredible, and I love their little sock hop and their little lights that they bring. And it's the first time we see Ginger and Rocky kind of getting along.
Yeah, that's like, okay, maybe you're not so bad. You saved me. You're having this party for my friends. And like, there's a minute, technically the party happens before the rescue, but it's whatever. But the most important thing is like, after she's rescued, she goes to tell Rocky, thank you, you're not so bad. He even gets a medal from Fowler, thanking him for his service. And like, they've had to be roommates this whole time, because Fowler's like, I am not letting you hang out with all those women. You are going to get every single one of them pregnant. You have to sleep with me. Actually, no, I think Ginger made that choice, because Fowler is not thrilled to.
No, Fowler fucking hates that shit.
Yeah.
But and the party, I think the important part is that the party ends with Babs being flung across the room, and she quote unquote flies.
Yes, right. They have hope. And like, Fowler goes and gives Rocky this medal, and he's like, you know what, for your valor and your bravery, and thank you. I misjudged your character. And at this point, Rocky's like, I gotta tell them the truth, and I've gotta leave. And he does, and he leaves us a folded scrap of paper for Ginger to find. And the next morning she sees the medal that he's left and the paper, and like, this is like a really like impressive and like hard-hitting shot, but like all the chickens are lined up waiting for her to bring Rocky out to teach them to fly. And she comes out, and there's like, she walks down this like alley of chickens, and like, it starts to rain. Like there's like a really impressive bit where it rains, and it's like, how did they get this water to happen, in claymation? But she like puts the note under the poster, and it's the part of the poster that was like torn off, and it's it being shot out of a cannon. And old Mac is like, that would provide the thrust. And everybody's like, oh my god, he couldn't fly all along. Oh no. And they're just so sad.
The saddest Harry Gregson-Williams like violin sonata underneath it all. Like, just heartbreaking. She puts the poster up and lightning flashes. Like, just the emotional weight of these chickens going through it in every single scene in this movie is so fucking good. They do such a good job of like looping you into this world. But yeah, Rocky takes the fuck off. And the chickens start mud wrestling.
They start beating the shit out of each other. And then, eventually they what's her name? Ginger realizes like, Fowler says something about a crate, and she's like, oh wait, Fowler, what are you always fucking talking about when you talk about your RAF days? He's like, yeah, the crate. And like, he gets a picture, and and it's like a post stamp of the airplane that he flew in. And they're like, okay, we're going to build this airplane. That's how we're going to escape. And they like all band together, and they start, manufacturing a flying machine. And it's a big goofy looking, like, it's basically a bicycle that has wings that you can flap, but they have it, and they're all ready to go. And then she's like, all right, Fowler, you got to fly this thing. He's like, oh, I didn't fly the air. I'm a chicken. They didn't let me fly the fucking airplanes. You know that, right? And she's like, are you fucking kidding me, Fowler? But like eventually she talks him into flying it. They do actually, start flying, but they also had to at one point kidnap Mr. The farmer because he found out what they were doing, and they just stuffed him under one of the chicken houses.
Mr. Tweety opens up the top of that fucking coop, and he just goes, my tools! I knew it. And everyone turns to Ginger. Ginger, calm, composed Ginger, who always has a plan. And Mac's like, what's the plan? And Ginger's just making dead eye contact with this farmer. And then she screams, attack. And like 40 chickens take down this fully grown man. It's really good.
This is one of the times in which I wish that Mortified had a larger listenership, because I want somebody to animate the juxtaposition of Ginger yelling attack and the guy in Andor when they are breaking out of the prison yelling attack, and both of them, like all the people throwing the tools up at the guards, because I think there's a lot of thematic parallels between Andor and this movie.
It is a very similar energy is the problem.
It's really good. Anyway, he gets out of his bonds. He like knocks over their ramp. They're about to, get caught. But then all of a sudden, what's his name? Rocky comes back to save Ginger from Mrs. Tweedy, who like is going full. What's the fucking Jack Nicholson from that movie mode? She's like, she has the hatchet like in her hands. Rocky and Ginger get back on the plane. They fly the plane into the air. The plane works, but because there's some like lighting, I'm realizing now how silly this last bit is, but like they illuminated the runway with like Christmas lights. And like one of the Christmas lights gets caught on the ramp or whatever. So Mrs.
It gets
Tweedy
caught on the tail of the plane,
right,
when they're doing the U-turn after Mr. Tweedy knocks the ramp down the first time.
Correct. Right.
And then it trails, and then this chicken-powered aircraft, which is made of a chicken coop and a pedaling mechanism, with its trailing Christmas lights, fully hundreds of feet in the air, can maintain the weight of a fully grown adult human woman.
Yeah, she's going like Rambo mode. Like she has the hatchet in her teeth and is climbing up these Christmas lights to come, I guess, murder every single chicken in the airplane is her plan. But like, yeah, Ginger has to like, cut the rope that's, tying the thing, and it looks like she gets beheaded, but she doesn't. And then she drops Fowler and she falls into the machine. And then for 1 second, I thought they were going to let her drown in gravy. And I was like, hey, what the fuck, movie? That's pretty gruesome, even for this film. But thankfully the gravy meter just like goes up again and explodes. And the last shot we get of them is Mr. Fowler being like, I told you the chickens were organizing. The
last shot you get is fully Mrs. Tweedy getting crushed by the door.
Yes, that's
barn,
true.
So she may have very well died.
She might be dead. But yeah, they fly off to like a little island that's their promised land. And there's like a little time skip, and then there's a bunch of little baby chicks that they're all teaching about their history and like how to fly, and it's very cute. Yeah,
and of course the rats came with.
Yeah, naturally.
And they're debating what came first, the chicken or the egg, as the movie goes.
Stupid ass way to end a movie, but it's really good. You have to respect it.
Hey, where do the chicklets come from if Rocky and Fowler are the only roosters there?
What do you think?
I'm just saying.
They're the only roosters there.
So I think Bunty's kids are definitely Fowlers, because the mud wrestling does start with Bunty attacking Fowler, and again, it's a little charged.
Oh yeah, there's like history between them. Like that, she gets at Fowler a little bit too hard. Like that there's something going on between them.
There is something happening. Well, listen, I am clinically obsessed with the RE4 remake right now, and like I'm watching Leon Scott Kennedy, my baby girl, fight Krauser, who is his commander, and like, listen, every character who comes in contact with Leon Scott Kennedy wants to fuck Leon Scott Kennedy, and it's just like, it's so charged, and it's such a similar energy in Chicken Run, two properties you can definitely compare with ease and fluidity. I I'm just saying Bunty and Fowler are having a little me December moment, and that's great.
Yeah. And with that, can't top that. Yeah, I mean, Leyla, I don't know that we have a lot of like talking points or marketing ideas here. But you know, I think this is a good time.
I am so glad that you wanted to watch this movie because I love it, and it's so weird. It's so fun. Aardman does such a fun job with, I don't know, just like goof ass concepts. I wish there was more stop motion in the world. Period.
Yep. I mean, we said this with the Pinocchio movie too, right? Like that's a really impressive art style, and it's very creative, and obviously it takes a lot of time to do, a lot of expertise, but like that's the kind of stuff we want to see more in media, right? Is people that are like experts in their field doing something really, you know, deep in their craft. And you know, I just will, maybe that'll be in November. Maybe we'll watch Chicken Run in November. Who knows?
I mean, let's listen. I'll watch it by myself first, and we'll figure out if there's anything to talk about.
We'll do a little preview to see if it passes muster. But
audience, there is more than one time, just this year, honestly, that we'll watch something and go, we don't think there's anything to talk about here.
Listen, it happens to the best of us. But yeah, no, thank you, audience, for being patient. We have been very busy the last couple of weeks, so that's why we haven't heard from us for a while, but we will hopefully be getting back on the podcasting grind, and we're going to start up a new series. I know that it's been a while. You know, we only finished up the Fast franchise like last year, but we've got a new one for you that I think will be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did the Twilight franchise. That's kind of tied.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that did tide us over. But this one will be even more interesting, and I can't wait to see how that develops. But yeah, Leyla, when we are not, building our media empire by talking about the only watchable Mel Gibson movie, where can we be found on the internet?
God, that's the fucking episode title, isn't it? You can find me at LEYLSES on Twitter and Tumblr. I tweeting mostly about Elden Ring and my thirst for Leon Scott Kennedy, and doing little else productive other than this show. Aaron, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at AaronSXL. I also have my own website, that's aavoigt.com, and I do YouTube reviews of tabletop games. That's at aavoigt on YouTube. If you like the work that we do at Mortified, if you like Leyla, you might want to tune in for my latest tabletop review that's coming out on Friday, because I worked really hard on it, and I do cite Layla's essay that about diaspora that I always go back and read like once every couple months. So yeah, I think you should check that out if you're a hardcore Mortified listener.
Which all 30 of you should be.
I agree. What is all the Bible Boys? Bible Boys is also very busy, but we are getting close to our 100th episode, so please check that out when you've got the time. That's at the Bible Boys on Twitter. But yeah, it's we're gonna revisit God's Not Dead at some point. We should do the fucking 10 Commandments. I need to talk to them about doing that because we need to hit that. But yeah, I'm
shocked that has not been done yet.
It's just that's a 4-hour movie is probably the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, I don't want to hear it from your and Josh's fucking documentary episodes.
Yeah, we've made some choices. But anyway, our theme song is Obsolete by Keshko from the album Filmmakers Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshko.bandcamp.com. Leyla, how are we gonna close this one out, you think?
We're gonna be late to every war, overpaid, oversexed, and over here.
God bless America. We'll see you all next week.